I signed the divorce papers on the brightest day of summer, which seemed like the universe's coolest joke. There I was ending 8 years of marriage in a sterile downtown Detroit law office, while children's laughter floated up from the park across the street. The fountain pen felt impossibly heavy as I scrolled my name, Isla Bennett. Soon, Toby, former Mrs. Jonathan Phillips. Would you like a copy sent to your office at the university? Dr. Wright, the lawyer asked, her voice softening with practiced sympathy. No, home address is fine. I couldn't bear the thought of those papers showing up at the archaeology department, fodder for the academic gossip mill. Word would spread fast enough without me offering up evidence. 3 hours later, I sat alone in my newly half-empty living room, surrounded by dust outlines where Jonathan's things had been the bottle of scotch, his parting gift. The bastard stood open on the coffee table. I'd never been much of a drinker, but tonight seemed as good as any to develop bad habits. Rain began pelting the windows, the perfect soundtrack to my misery. I pressed my forehead against the cool glass, watching water trails race down the pane like the tears I refused to shed. My reflection stared back, brown hair falling limply around a face I barely recognized. Blue eyes hollow with exhaustion. The weather alert on my phone broke my trance. Flash flood warning for downtown Detroit. Perfect. Maybe the whole city could drown alongside my marriage. My chest tightened, suddenly an invisible vice crushing my ribcage. I gasped for air as the room began to spin. Panic attack. Not my first since finding Jonathan in bed with his research assistant 2 months ago, but definitely the worst. I needed airspace. Anything but these walls that held too many memories. I grabbed my keys and ran for the door, not bothering with an umbrella. The rain felt cleansing somehow as I stumbled toward my car. The dashboard clock read 11:47 p.m. when I started driving. No destination in mind, just away. The windshield wipers fought valiantly against the deluge, but couldn't keep up. Unfamiliar streets blurred past as I drove deeper into a neighborhood I didn't recognize. That's when my faithful 10-year-old Toyota chose its moment of solidarity with my failed marriage and died with a pathetic sputter. No, no, no. I slammed my palms against the steering wheel, the sting against my skin. The only thing confirming I could still feel anything at. All I sat there for what felt like hours, rainming on the roof, watching occasional headlights slice through the darkness. My phone showed only 10% battery remaining. Not that I had anyone to call. Jonathan had been my emergency contact for nearly a decade. A soft tap on my window made me jump. Through the foggy glass, I could make out a silhouette holding an umbrella. Great, just what my night needed. Getting murdered in a strange part of town? I cracked the window an inch. Car trouble. The voice was female. Warm despite the cold rain. You've been sitting here for 20 minutes. I was watching from my studio across the street. I wiped condensation from my window to see a woman about my age, maybe slightly younger. Raindrops glistening in her blonde hair where it escaped her hood. Her green eyes reflected the streetlight with something that looked suspiciously like kindness. I can help, she offered, a smile playing at her lips. I'm Nana Tessa Monroe. I'm fine, I lied automatically, my voice cracking. On the second word, she raised an eyebrow, unconvinced. Your definition of fine involves sitting in a dead car during a flash flood warning. The absurdity of the situation hit me, and something between a laugh and a sob escaped my throat when you put it that way. Come on, she said, opening my door with surprising authority. My place is right there. Phone charger, hot tea. Roadside assistance in that order. I hesitated only briefly before stepping into the rain beside her. Under her umbrella, I caught the scent of something earthy and exotic, sandalwood maybe, so different from Jonathan's expensive cologne. Her studio loft lights beckoned like a lighthouse across the street. I'm Caroline, I finally offered as we dodged puddles. I know, she said quietly. I've been wanting to meet you for a long time. Na's loft was everything my suburban home wasn't. Open, artistic, alive with color. Massive windows showcased the storm outside, now transforming the Detroit skyline into a blur of smudged lights. You've been wanting to meet me? I asked, still puzzled by her earlier comment as I dripped rainwater onto her polished concrete floor. Na handed me a towel, professional admiration. I recognized you from the university website. Your work on Mesopotamian. Burial rituals is fascinating. I blinked in surprise. Few people outside academic circles knew my work, let alone found it fascinating. As I dried my hair, I noticed the walls were covered with stunning photographs, ancient ruins bathed in sunset light, close-ups of artifacts that somehow captured their soul, landscapes that made my archaeologist heart ache with recognition. These are incredible immermured moving closer to examine a shot of Petra that somehow made the ancient city look both timeless and intimate. Na smiled. A flash of perfect teeth against sun-kissed skin. That's what I do. Adventure photography. Primarily for historical publications, your Nina Anderson. Recognition dawned. Your Jordan expedition photos were in last month's historical review. She nodded, seeming pleased I'd made the connection. The same tea, coffee, something stronger. Tea, please. The last thing I needed was alcohol clouding my already jumbled thoughts. While Nana busied herself in the kitchen area, I studied her collection of artifacts ethically sourced. I hoped, though, they appeared to be mainly replicas. My phone buzzed from where it now charged on her counter. A text from Jonathan. Left some mail for you. Will be tomorrow to get it. Jay, no hope you're okay or sorry for destroying our life together. Just practical Jonathan, even in betrayal trouble. Nah. Handed me a steaming mug that smelled of chamomile and honey. Ex-husband, I said, surprising myself with the ease of that admission. It's my first night as an officially divorced woman. Something flickered in her eyes. Sympathy without pity. Then you definitely need this. She clinked her mug against mine to new beginnings. 3 hours later, we were still talking. Na had called roadside assistance for my car, but the storm had backed up service calls across the city. I'd learned she'd traveled to 37 countries, spoke 4 languages, and had narrowly escaped a flash flood in Morocco. In turn, I'd shared stories of my academic triumphs and failures, even making her laugh with tales of undergrad excavation disasters when my phone rang at 3 Magye. We both jumped. Your car is ready, she said after I hung up with the service company battery issue. They jumped it and left it running. I should go, I said. Reluctantly, Na walked me to the door, then hesitated. I'm working on a proposal for National Geographic A series on overlooked archaeological sites. Your expertise would be invaluable. Could I call you sometime professionally? Speaking, I found myself nodding before I could overthink it. We exchanged numbers, her fingers brushing against mine as she handed back my phone. A small electric current seemed to run from the point of contact up my arm, surprising me with its intensity. The next morning, I expected to feel embarrassment about my breakdown and strange night with a stranger. Instead, I felt oddly lighter as I made coffee in my empty kitchen. When my phone pinged with a text, I assumed it was Jonathan confirming his unwanted visit. Instead, it was Nina car still running. Also found this article on female burial customs and error that might interest you. Link attached. I smiled despite myself and responded before heading to campus. 3 days and 27 texts later, I stood in my office explaining to Department Chair Homer Jenkins why inviting adventure photographer Nina Anderson to document our artifact collection was a brilliant funding strategy. She has connections at 4 major publications. I explained, trying to sound purely professional, her photos could bring serious attention to our department's work. Homer twirled his pen thoughtfully. And she's willing to do this at reduced cost as a professional courtesy. I confirmed, ignoring the warmth that spread through my chest, remembering Na's insistence that this collaboration would benefit her portfolio equally. What I didn't mention was how I rushed to my phone whenever it chimed, how our professional texts had evolved to include food recommendations, movie opinions, and increasingly personal anecdotes. Or how, for the first time since discovering Jonathan's betrayal, I'd gone 24 hours without crying. Arrange a meeting. Homer finally agreed. But Caroline? He fixed me with a paternal stare. The department's still recovering from last year's budget cuts. Make sure this partnership is worth the investment. I nodded confidently, already texting Nato set up our first official meeting. As I walked across campus later that afternoon, autumn leaves crunching beneath my boots. My phone buzzed with her response, coffee tomorrow at 10, or dinner tonight at 8, purely professional. Either way, I stared at those words for a long moment, my finger hovering over the keyboard. The smart choice was coffee, daytime public brief. Instead, I typed dinner. Send the address. When I hit send, I hadn't realized I was holding my breath. Nor did. I understand why my heart raced when 3 dots appeared, followed by her reply. Looking forward to it. Wear something nice. I know just the place you're staring at that artifact label like it personally offended you, Nara remarked, setting down her camera. We were alone in the university's collection room, surrounded by glass cases of Mesopotamian treasures most people would never appreciate. Sorry, I sighed, pushing away the catalog. My concentration is shot today. 3 weeks had passed since our dinner, a night at an intimate Lebanese restaurant, where professional conversation had gradually surrendered to personal revelations. Since then, Nena had become a fixture at the archaeology department. Her camera documenting our collection with an artist's eye rather than just a technician's precision. Is it the faculty meeting or something else? Na perched on the edge of my desk close enough that I caught a whisper of her perfume. Something with sandalwood again. Exotic and grounding. Both I couldn't tell her that something else was her presence. How it simultaneously calmed and unsettled me. The board wants preliminary photos for the funding proposal. By Friday, already done, she grinned, sliding her tablet toward me. Take a look. The images on screen made me catch my breath. Na had transformed our dusty artifacts into objects of mystery and beauty. A simple clay tablet became a testament to human communication. A tarnished copper mirror reflected thousands of years of human vanity. Most striking was a photo of me working, unaware of the camera head bent over. A uniform tablet, sunlight from the high windows catching my hair. She'd captured concentration, and passion in my expression that I hadn't known was visible from the outside. You can't use that one, I said quickly. Why not? It's perfect. Merges the researcher with the research. Na's eyes held mine. Shows the human connection to history. I looked away first. The board wants artifacts, not people. The board wants money. Nina countered. Donors give to passion projects, not object catalogues. Trust me on this. We worked late that night arranging photos into a narrative sequence. By midnight, empty coffee. Cups and takeout containers littered my normally pristine office. Na sprawled in my visitor's chair, feet propped on a stack of journals as she adjusted color balance on final images. Tell me about your divorce, she said suddenly, eyes still on her screen. The question caught me off guard. Standard story. He found someone younger. Nothing about you is standard. Caroline, I stared at the ceiling, considering how much to reveal. Jonathan was my academic advisor. Before he was my husband. Brilliant man, we built our careers together. Complementary research, shared publications. Then I found him with his new graduate assistant. I laughed bitterly. Apparently it's his pattern. Na set aside her tablet. He's an idiot. He's consistent. I corrected loves. The chase. The mentoring. Once I became his equal, I stopped being interesting. And you blame yourself somehow. It wasn't a question. Wouldn't you 8 years, and I never saw it coming? Na leaned forward. I see a woman who deserves. Someone capable of growing with her, not someone threatened by her brilliance. Something in her tone made me change the subject. What about you, ever married, once engaged to a photojournalist? We covered conflicts together until I realized I was more interested in ancient civilizations than current ones. She wanted war zones. I wanted ruins. She. The pronoun landed softly between us. Na watched my reaction carefully. Surprised, she asked. No. I answered truthfully. Something about Nena had always felt wonderfully unitategorizable, just filling in blanks. The proposal was submitted Friday morning. By afternoon, the department was celebrating Homer's announcement that the board had unanimously approved our exhibition funding. Impressed by Na's visual narrative and my academic framework, the champagne was Homer's idea, cheap but festive, poured into paper cups in the faculty lounge. Na arrived late, sliding into the celebration after most colleagues had returned to classes. She wore a simple black blazer over a white shirt, casual yet somehow more striking than usual. To successful partnerships, Homer toasted us before leaving for a budget meeting. Alone with Nana in the suddenly quiet room, I felt an unfamiliar tension. I should thank you properly. I said, dinner again, my treat. This time I have a better idea. Na produced a bottle far superior to Homer's champagne. I thought we deserved the good stuff. Your place or mine. Warning bells rang distantly in my mind. This was crossing a boundary. Personal. Space after hours, alcohol mine. I heard myself say, around 8 Na. Arrived exactly on time, bearing not just champagne, but also a small wrapped package. My apartment, though still bearing divorce scars of missing furniture and bare walls, was at least clean. Housewarming gift, she explained, handing me the package once inside. For your fresh start. Inside was a framed photograph, not one of her professional shots, but a candid taken during our first meeting. It showed me laughing, head thrown back, more carefree. Then I remembered feeling, when did you take this? I asked, strangely touched. When you were telling me about finding those student beers hidden in an excavation pit. Na opened the champagne with practiced ease. You said it was the first time you'd laughed in months. I thought you might want to remember what that looks like. We settled on my couch with full glasses. The conversation flowed easily professional. Topics gradually giving way to childhood stories and travel dreams. As the bottle emptied, Na moved closer, pointing out details and photographs from her global adventures now displayed on my coffee table. This one, she said, voice soft with memory, was the moment I knew I'd never go back to standard photography. Her shoulder pressed against mine as we bent over the image. When she turned to gauge my reaction, her face was inches from mine. Time suspended as her eyes dropped briefly to my lips. A question. In them, I wasn't ready to answer. Caroline? She whispered, leaning forward infinitesimally. I stood abruptly, nearly spilling my champagne. It's getting late, early class tomorrow. Na recovered smoothly, gathering her things with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Of course, thanks for a lovely evening. At my door, she paused. Caroline, I'm not him. I don't play games or have hidden agendas. She left before I could find an adequate response, leaving me staring at their photograph of my laughter, evidence of a version of myself I barely recognized, and wasn't sure I could become again. The invitation arrived in my campus mailbox 3 weeks after the champagne night. Heavy cream paper, Jonathan's familiar monogram embossed in the corner, inside a handwritten note rather than a formal card. Caroline, I hope this finds you well. I'd appreciate you joining me for lunch Thursday at Bellini's to discuss the division of our remaining joint property. Also, I have news I'd prefer to share in person. Jay Isterid at his perfect penmanship, a wave of nausea. Rising. Since our almost moment, Na and I had retreated to careful professionalism, the exhibition preparations providing convenient structure to our interactions. Now Jonathan wanted lunch, and I realized with surprise that I'd gone days without thinking of him bad news. Na's voice startled me. She stood in my office doorway, camera bag slung over one shoulder. Jonathan wants to meet. I handed her the note, wanting her read on the situation. Her eyes scanned it quickly, face neutral. Are you going, I suppose? There's still that vacation property in Traverse City to sort out? Na handed back the note, her finger scarcely avoiding mine. Want company? I could wait at the bar. The offer warmed me more than it should have. I'll be fine, but thank you. Bellini's was our place. Once where Jonathan proposed, where we celebrated promotions and publications. Thursday, I arrived intentionally 5 minutes late. A small act of rebellion. Jonathan stood when I approached, the gesture so familiar it hurt. You look. Well, he said, assessing me as I sat. I did. Look well. I'd lost the power of early grief, gained back weight that stress had stripped. I wore a blue dress. Na had complimented once, saying it matched my eyes. What's your news, Jonathan? I asked, skipping. Pleasantries. He had the grace to look uncomfortable. I thought we might order first. Just tell me. He sighed, straightening his silverware. A nervous habit I once found endearing. Rebecca and I are engaged. The wedding's in June. Rebecca, the graduate assistant. The one he'd claimed was just a mistake during our separation discussions, I'd expected. This yet, the confirmation still stung. Congratulations, I managed June is perfect for academic schedules. There's more. Jonathan cleared his throat. Rebecca's pregnant 4 months along. The timeline hit me like physical pain. 4 months meant she was pregnant. While we were still negotiating divorce terms, while he was sending me apologetic texts suggesting reconciliation might be possible. Say something, Caroline, I hope. You've updated your pattern recognition skills, I said coldly. For the baby's sake. The waiter arrived. Jonathan ordered for both of us, old habit, and I let him suddenly too exhausted to make decisions. We discussed the vacation property in clip sentences. I agreed to sell him my half at market value, wanting nothing, connecting us anymore. By dessert, which I couldn't touch, Jonathan had relaxed enough to become curious. Homer mentioned. You're working with some photographer on a special exhibition, Tessa Monroe. She's quite respected in her field. He seemed to think you two were close. The implication hung between us. For one satisfying moment, I considered letting him believe Na and I were involved just to see his reaction. Instead, I signed the check he'd placed between us. My personal life is no longer your concern. Jonathan, congratulations. Again, on your news outside, rain fell. Not the dramatic downpour of the night. My car died, but a persistent, chilling drizzle. I walked 6 blocks before realizing I'd left my umbrella at the restaurant. By then, my hair hung in wet strings and my carefully applied makeup had surely vanished. Without conscious decision, I found myself at Na's building. She answered the door in paint-splattered jeans and an oversized sweater, clearly surprised to see me dripping on her doorstep. Caroline. What happened? Jonathan's getting married. His graduate assistant is pregnant. The words tumbled out. She was pregnant. While we were still technically married, Na pulled me inside. Without hesitation, wrapping a soft blanket around my shoulders and pressing a mug of something warm into my hands before I'd even finished explaining. He ordered my lunch for me, I said, the absurdity suddenly hitting me. After everything, he still thinks he knows what I want better than I do. What do you want? Caroline. Na asked quietly, settling beside me on her couch. I want to stop feeling like I failed at the one thing I was supposed to succeed at. I want to stop wondering what I could have done differently. Maybe nothing. Maybe some people just can't recognize what they have. I stared into my mug, hot chocolate with a hint of something stronger. He thinks, we're involved, you and me, and that bothers you. Her voice was carefully neutral. No, that's what bothers me. It doesn't bother me at all. I looked up to find her watching me with that particular intensity she usually reserved for her photography subjects. Stay for dinner, she said. We can talk or not talk. Watch terrible movies, whatever you need. The evening blurred into a comfortable haze. Takeout containers, old black and white films. Nana loved conversation that required nothing of me but honesty. I told stories. About my childhood, my parents' difficult marriage that had shaped my determination to succeed at my own. She shared adventures from Mongolia to Peru, each tale somehow making the world seem both vaster and more intimate. I don't remember falling asleep. Only the feeling of safety as exhaustion claimed me. When I woke hours later, the TV was off. A soft blanket tucked around me. Na slept in the armchair nearby as if standing guard over my vulnerability. Morning light filtered through her massive windows. As I studied her in sleep, the curve of her cheek blonde hair tumbled across her forehead, the slight part of her lips. Something fundamental had shifted inside me, a recognition I wasn't ready to name but couldn't ignore. I closed my eyes, pretending sleep when I heard her stir. Her footsteps whispered across the floor, and then I felt the lightest touch, her lips brushing my forehead in a gesture so tender it made my throat tight. Sweet dreams, Caroline, she whispered clearly, believing me asleep. I kept my eyes closed, afraid of what she might see in them if I didn't. Na deserved a proper thank you. That thought consumed me for days after waking on her couch, after feeling her kiss on my forehead, after pretending it hadn't affected me profoundly. You look distracted, Homer commented as we reviewed exhibition layouts. Everything all right with the Anderson collaboration, fine, I assured him quickly. Just finalizing her contribution section. In truth, Nana and I had fallen into a comfortable rhythm, Professional days filled with exhibition preparations, occasional evenings sharing takeout while labeling photos. We never mentioned the almost kiss or my breakdown after Jonathan's news, yet something had changed. Lingering glance our hands, finding excuses to touch when passing documents, the way my office felt empty when she left. The exhibition opening was just 3 weeks away. Na had transformed our dusty artifacts into visual poetry while I'd woven research narratives that even non-academics could appreciate. Together, we'd created something remarkable. I want to do something nice for Nana. I told my colleague Eliza over lunch, a thank you gift for all her work. Dinner somewhere fancy? Eliza suggested, stirring her soup. We've done dinner, you want something more meaningful? Eliza raised an eyebrow. Sounds like someone's developed a crush on the photographer. It's not, I started then stopped. Is it that obvious only to everyone with functioning eyeballs? She laughed. The way you light up when she enters a room, classic. That night I scrolled through Na's professional social media pages studying what had made her successful. Adventure authenticity, making ancient history feel immediate and relevant. An idea began forming a digital tribute, showcasing how her work had transformed our exhibition. I'd never been social media savvy. Jonathan had managed our limited online presence during our marriage, carefully curating our academic image. Now fumbling through Instagram's interface, I created my first personal account. After uploading a profile photo Na had taken of me examining artifacts, I spent hours selecting exhibition photos that highlighted her talent. My caption attempted both gratitude and professionalism. Extraordinary vision brings history to life. Privileged to collaborate with a 9A Anderson Photography on our upcoming exhibition, History Through Her Lens, Detroit University satisfied. I added several hashtags I'd researched, including some trending photography ones. As an afterthought, I tagged several photography magazines and influencers. Nana had mentioned hoping to increase visibility for her work. I hit post around midnight. Pleased with my surprise, tribute my phone buzzed at 6 a.m., then again and again. Blurrily checking notifications, I found hundreds of likes, comments, and shares. Confused, I opened the post to discover what had happened. In my hashtag enthusiasm and social media inexperience, I'd accidentally included several celebrity tags and a viral wedding hashtag with one misplaced letter. Worse, one of the photography influencers I'd tagged, a famous Hollywood director with millions of followers, had shared my post with a comment about discovering authentic artistic partnerships. By the time I arrived at my office, my phone wouldn't stop vibrating. Nina burst through my door without knocking, her expression unreadable. Have you seen what's happening? She asked. I'm so sorry, I began. I was trying to create a surprise. Thank you, I didn't realize. Caroline, I've gained 15,000 followers overnight. My website crashed from traffic. Oh God, I've damaged your professional reputation. Damaged, she lobbed incredulously. National Geographic just emailed about a feature. This is unbelievable. Publicity relief flooded me. So you're not angry, are you kidding? Na's response was interrupted by Homer appearing in my doorway, his face unusually grave. Caroline, a word, had gestured toward his office. Na and I exchanged glances as I followed him down the hall. Inside his office, he closed the door and indicated a chair. Is there something you'd like to tell me about your relationship with Miss Anderson? Asked. We're colleagues, I said cautiously. Collaborators on the exhibition. He slid a tablet across his desk. On screen was my Instagram post, but below it were comments and reposts. I hadn't seen speculation about the obvious chemistry between us. Side-by-side photos, someone had compiled of Nana and me working together, looking at each other with what was being interpreted as undeniable attraction. The university is receiving media inquiries. Homer continued. The Detroit Chronicle wants an interview about the passionate partnership behind the upcoming exhibition. Their words, "This is ridiculous," I protested. It was just a thank you post. Caroline, Homer sighed. I don't care about your personal life, but the board is concerned about potential scandal affecting attendance and donations. Scandal, it's 2023. Homer, Detroit University has conservative donors. You know this, I stood, anger rising. If those donors want our exhibition to succeed, they'll focus on its academic merit, not manufactured gossip. Returning to my office, I found Nah, scrolling through her phone, face troubled. Did you see the tabloid? Posts? She asked. They're calling us the stuffy professor and wild explorer, like we're characters in a romance novel. Homer just warned me about potential scandal. I admitted this is my fault. I never should have stopped. Nah, interrupted. You did something nice that had unexpected consequences, but Caroline, she hesitated. People are saying things about us, making assumptions. We should release a statement clarifying our professional relationship. I suggested the words tasting bitter somehow. Nah studied me for a long moment. Is that what you want to clarify, that there's nothing between us? The question hung in the air between us. Before I could answer, my phone rang. The Detroit Chronicle requesting comment on my whirlwind romance with the famous photographer. This is insane, I whispered after declining the call. Maybe we should separate for a few days, Na suggested quietly. Let things die down. The thought of not seeing her created an unexpected panic. The exhibition will survive a few days without us working side by side. I've been offered a quick assignment in Chicago anyway. Perfect timing. The ease with which she suggested separation hurt more than it should have. If you think that's best, I managed. Na gathered her equipment, movements efficient but, somehow, reluctant. At my door, she paused. For what it's worth. Caroline, your post was the sweetest thing anyone's done for me in years. After she left, I sat alone in my suddenly silent office, wondering how my small gesture of gratitude had somehow both advanced Na's career and driven her away 3 days without Na felt like eternity. The exhibition preparation continued, but the energy had drained from the project. I moved through final arrangements, mechanically ignoring concerned glances from colleagues who'd seen the trending stories. The Chronicle called again. My department assistant said, handing me a message slip. And People magazine wants to know if you'll pose for photos with Miss Anderson at the opening. Decline everything, I instructed, retreating. To my office, my phone showed no messages from Nina. Her Instagram featured new content, Chicago architecture shots. Nothing personal. I wondered if she was deliberately creating distance, not just physically, but emotionally. When Homer appeared at my door. Friday afternoon, I expected more damage control discussions. Instead, he handed me a folder. Last-minute research opportunity, he explained. The Hamilton dig in northern Michigan needs an expert consultant for a week. They found potentially significant burial artifacts. The exhibition opens in 2 weeks, I reminded him, which is why this is perfect timing. You go consult for a week, return for final preparations. Meanwhile, the media circus dies down. Homer gave me a knowing look, the university's image. Office thinks it's best if you're not in Detroit right now. I understood the subtext. The university was removing me temporarily, hoping gossip would subside before the high-profile opening. Part of me wanted to refuse on principle, but the thought of escaping the scrutiny was tempting. When would I leave? Tomorrow morning. I've arranged a university vehicle. 24 hours later, I was driving north on empty highways, Michigan's autumn splendor unfurling around me. The research site was remote, a small archaeological team excavating a previously unknown settlement near Lake Superior. The crisp air and professional focus were exactly what I needed. Dr. Lori Martinez, the site director, greeted me warmly. We're thrilled you could come on short notice, Dr. Wright. The burial items have unusual markings. We hoped you could help identify. For 3 days, I lost myself in work, examining artifacts and consulting on preservation techniques. The team was skilled and the discoveries genuinely interesting. At night, I stayed in a rustic cabin with spotty cell service, a perfect excuse for limited communication. On the 4th day, clouds gathered ominously, storm coming. Lori warned as we covered excavation sites. Forecast says it's hitting tonight, might last through tomorrow. By evening, rain pounded the cabin roof, wind howling through surrounding pines. I sat by the wood stove reviewing photographs of the day's finds when a vehicle's headlights swept across my window. Probably Lori bringing additional weather supplies. The knock came as thunder crashed overhead. I opened the door to find Nina soaking wet, a backpack slung over her shoulder. What are you doing here? I asked, shocked. Can I come in first? I'm drowning out here. I stepped aside, watching as she shook water from her hair. She wore hiking boots and a rain jacket that had clearly lost its waterproofing capabilities. How did you find me? I called Homer when I got back from Chicago yesterday. He mentioned your convenient research opportunity. She unfastened her jacket, revealing a flannel shirt beneath. I finished my assignment early and thought. She hesitated. Actually, I don't know what I thought. I handed her a towel. Does the university know you're here? I'm not on their payroll. She dried, her hair looking around the Spartan cabin. Cozy Na, you drove 5 hours in a storm to reach a remote archaeological site. Why? She sat heavily by the stove, extending her hands toward its warmth. Because you ran away. I didn't run. It was a research opportunity. Right? Her skepticism was evident. Had nothing to do with the media frenzy or the almost moment in your office. The wind rattled the windows fiercely. The storm outside matched the turbulence I felt within. You left too, I pointed out. Chicago, remember? A 2-day assignment I'd scheduled weeks ago. Not the same as disappearing to the wilderness. Na's eyes held mine. Did you even plan to say goodbye if I hadn't come back early? The question pierced me. In truth, part of me had been relieved when she'd suggested separation. Not because I wanted distance, but because her proximity was becoming increasingly difficult to navigate without acknowledging feelings I wasn't ready to face. I thought space would help. I admitted, didn't know thunder crashed again. The lights flickered, then plunged us into darkness. Only the stove's glow illuminated the cabin. I fumbled for the emergency lantern, setting it between us. Na's face and the soft light looked both vulnerable and determined. I didn't come just to argue, she said more gently. I brought equipment to document the site. Thought it might complement the exhibition. You drove through a storm to take photographs. I drove through a storm because I couldn't stand another day, wondering if you were okay. If you regretted that post, if you were hiding because of me. She looked down. The equipment was my professional excuse. The confession hung in the air between us. Outside, rain lashed against the cabin with renewed fury. I don't regret the post, I said. Finally, just the chaos it created. Na moved closer, the lantern casting shadows across her face. And what about us? Do you regret whatever this is? I don't even know what this is. Don't you? She reached out her fingers, lightly touching mine where they rested, on my knee. That small contact sent warmth spreading through me that had nothing to do with the stove. I looked at our hands, her tanned fingers against my paler ones, and felt the last of my resistance crumbling. Nah, I began, now. She moved closer still. We don't have to define anything tonight. The storm raged around the cabin as she leaned forward, giving me every chance to pull away. I didn't. Her lips met mine, with gentle question, then growing certainty, as I responded. The kiss deepened, her hands tangling in my hair, mine finding her waist. When we finally broke apart breathless, the only sound was rain and our heartbeats. I've wanted to do that since the night your car broke down, she whispered against my lips. All the confusion and denial of recent weeks dissolved as I pulled her back to me, discovering what had been evident to everyone else, that whatever existed between us was too powerful to ignore any longer mourning. Light filtered through the cabin windows, revealing Na asleep beside me on the narrow bed we'd pushed against the wall. Last night's storm had passed, leaving behind a pristine silence broken only by birdsong. I studied her sleeping face, memorizing details I'd never allowed myself to fully observe before. The faint freckles across her nose, the slight curl to her eyelashes, the way one strand of blonde hair fell across her forehead. Something profound had shifted between us during the night, not just physical intimacy, though, that had been both frightening and revelatory, but a deeper honesty that felt like finally exhaling after holding my breath for months. Na stirred, green eyes blinking open. You're staring, she murmured, voice husky with sleep. Observing, I corrected, professional habit. Her smile was slow and warm as she reached for my hand. Any interesting findings, Professor? Significant ones, further study recommended. Her laugh was interrupted by my phone buzzing from somewhere on the floor. Reluctantly, I located it among discarded clothes. Homer, I sighed, showing Nana the screen. Probably wondering why you're not answering your phone either. The conversation was brief and uncomfortable. Yes, Nana had arrived safely. Yes, she was documenting the site. No, we wouldn't be returning early despite the university's concerns about our situation. Homer's relief that we were both in the same place, thereby confirming media speculation rather than creating new rumors, was almost comical. We have 5 more days, I said after hanging up, then back to reality and the exhibition opening. Na propped herself in one elbow. Regrets already? None, I assured her. Meaning it, just apprehension about returning to scrutiny over breakfast camp coffee and protein. Bars Nina had brought. We discussed what awaited us. The exhibition opening would attract university donors, academics, and now thanks to our viral moment, media attention, our personal relationship would inevitably become part of the story. We could still issue that clarifying statement, Na offered, though her expression suggested she'd rather not clarify what that the rumors are true. I took a breath, because they are, aren't they? This isn't just a fling. She took my hand, not for me, but Caroline. We can navigate this however makes you comfortable. I've been out for years. You're just beginning to understand yourself. The generosity of her patience made my throat tight. Before I could respond, a knock at the door announced Lori's arrival with news of what the storm had uncovered, a previously buried section of the settlement. The day disappeared into excavation work, Nena documenting every discovery with her characteristic brilliance. By week's end, we'd fallen into a rhythm working, separately but together, during the day exploring. Our new relationship in the privacy of evenings, I found myself laughing more freely than I had in years, sharing thoughts I'd never articulated even during my marriage. Na listened, with genuine interest to archaeological theories most people found tedious and challenged me with perspectives from her more adventurous life. The drive back to Detroit came too soon. As the city skyline appeared on the horizon, anxiety returned. Whatever happens, Na said, sensing my mood shift, remember how this felt. When it was just us, reality hit full force. The moment we entered the archaeology department, conversation stopped as we passed, resuming in whispers behind us. Homer waited in my office, expression grave. The trustees called an emergency meeting. He began without preamble. They're concerned about the exhibition's context, meaning me, I clarified, or rather, us. Homer nodded uncomfortably. There have been complaints from several major donors about potential lifestyle issues affecting the universities. Image lifestyle issues, Nina repeated flatly. In 2023, I'm just the messenger. Homer sighed. The exhibition opens in 4 days. The university president wants to meet with you tomorrow. Caroline. After he left, Nena paced my small office. This is ridiculous. Your work is brilliant. The exhibition is groundbreaking. Your personal life is irrelevant. Welcome to academia. I said bitterly. Where funding dictates everything, I could distance myself, she offered. Issue a statement saying, we're just colleagues, stay away from the opening. The suggestion hurt more than I expected. Is that what you want? Hell no, she said fiercely. I want Tustin beside you at that opening and be proud of what we've created professionally and personally, but I won't let my presence damage your career. I considered the options denial would protect my position, but require living a lie confirmation risk funding and possibly my standing at the university. Neither choice felt right. I need to think, I said finally, that night alone in my apartment. For the first time, since the cabin, I sorted through the complex tangle of professional consequences and personal truths. Around midnight, my doorbell rang, expecting Nina. I was stunned to find Jonathan. May I come in? He asked, his familiar confidence somewhat diminished. Wordlessly, I stepped aside. He entered, looking around at the changes I'd made since our divorce. New furniture, walls. No, filled with Na's photographs. I saw the stories he said finally about you and the photographer, and you rushed over at midnight to express concern. I couldn't keep the sarcasm from my voice. I came to offer support, actually. He looked genuinely uncomfortable. The university trustees include several of my father's friends. I could speak to them. The offer was so unexpected, I almost laughed. Why would you do that? Because despite everything, I still care what happens to you. He hesitated. And because I recognize the hypocrisy, I'm allowed to have a pregnant fiancé months after our divorce. But you face scrutiny for finding happiness. The sincerity in his voice was startling. For a moment, I glimpsed the man I'd once loved, flawed but occasionally capable of genuine decency. Thank you for the offer, I said carefully. But this is something I need to handle myself. After he left, I called Nana. I don't want to deny us, I told her, whatever that means for the exhibition or my position. Her relieved exhale was audible. Are you sure? As we spoke, an email from the university president appeared on my screen requesting my 90A. A meeting be moved to his office rather than the archaeology department? I guess I'll find out tomorrow. I said President Stevens's office occupied the top floor of the administration building, with windows overlooking the entire campus. I'd been there twice before, once when receiving tenure, once when our department won a prestigious grant. Today, the walk to his door felt like approaching judgment. His assistant nodded me in without the usual pleasantries. Inside, I found not just Stevens, but the head of university relations and 2 board members I recognized from fundraising events. Dr. Wright Stevens gestured to a chair positioned to face all 4 of them. Thank you for coming. Was there a choice? I kept my voice level, hands folded to hide. Their slight tremor, Stevens smiled thinly. We wanted to discuss the upcoming exhibition opening in light of recent publicity. My work speaks for itself, I said, as does Miss Anderson's. The woman from university relations. Patricia something slid several printouts across the table. Media coverage of our romance had expanded, with headlines ranging from mildly sensationalistic to outright invasive. These stories have nothing to do with archaeology, one trustee commented. They undermine the academic significance of your work. I didn't seek this attention. I reminded them a social media post went viral through no plan of mine. Nevertheless, Stevens interjected, we have donors expressing concern about what exactly I challenged, my competence, my research, or just who I care about. An uncomfortable silence followed. Patricia broke it with practiced diplomacy. We're simply suggesting a temporary separation of the personal and professional. Miss Anderson's photography remains part of the exhibition, but perhaps she doesn't need to attend the opening. The suggestion sparked unexpected anger. Nina Anderson is a critical collaborator whose vision transformed this project. Excluding her from the opening would be both unprofessional and unjust. We're thinking of the university's image, Stevens began. No, I interrupted, surprising myself with my firmness. You're capitulating to prejudice dressed as concern. If you're asking me to choose between professional advancement and personal integrity, that's no choice. At all, I stood gathering my belongings. The exhibition opens in 3 days. Either it proceeds with both creators present and acknowledged, or you'll need to find another curator to explain why one of photography's rising stars isn't there to receive credit for her work. Before they could respond, my office phone buzzed, my assistant special signal for urgent matters. Excuse me, I said, answering Dr. Wright. She whispered, your ex-husband is here. He says it's important. Confused, I excused myself from the meeting, finding Jonathan waiting in the hallway outside Stevens' office. What are you doing here? I asked. Damage control? He looked uncharacteristically nervous. Rebecca's father is Trustee Williams, the connection. Clicked immediately. Williams was one of Detroit University's largest donors and most conservative board members. Is he in there? I whispered. Jonathan nodded. He doesn't know I'm here. But Caroline, he's the one pushing hardest against your exhibition. Why are you telling me this? Because it's wrong, and because he hesitated. Rebecca pointed out what a hypocrite I'd be if I didn't support you now. Before I could respond, the office door opened. Stevens looked surprised to see Jonathan. Dr. Phillips, this is an unexpected visit. I heard you were meeting with my ex-wife about the exhibition. Jonathan replied smoothly. As the head of the history department at State, I wanted to express my institution's interest in potentially hosting the exhibition after its run here. The strategic move was brilliant, reminding everyone of Jonathan's position at our rival university and suggesting the exhibition had value beyond Detroit University. Stevens blinked. That's very interesting. Perhaps you'd like to join our discussion? The meeting resumed, with Jonathan's unexpected presence changing its tenor completely. He praised the exhibition's academic merit. emphasized Naina's professional reputation and subtly reminded everyone of his father's connections to several board members. By meeting end, Stevens was backpedaling. Perhaps we overreacted to the publicity. The exhibition should proceed as planned with both creators present. Outside, afterwards, I turned to Jonathan. Thank you. That was unexpected, considerate, partial. Amens. He looked genuinely remorseful. I spent years underestimating you, Caroline. Don't let anyone else make that mistake. I watched him walk away, realizing some chapter of my past had finally closed with his gesture of support. That evening, I met Naina at her loft recounting the day's events. She listened intently, her expression shifting from concern to disbelief to cautious relief. So Jonathan Phillips actually did something decent. She marveled. Wonders never cease. People can surprise you. I agreed, settling beside her on the couch. The exhibition opens as planned. Both of us acknowledged as creators. Naina took my hand, her expression turning serious. And what about us outside the exhibition? The question made my heart race. 3 months ago, I'd been a newly divorced woman hiding in my car during a rainstorm. Now I was considering a relationship that challenged everything I'd thought about myself. I'm still figuring things out. I admitted. But I know I want you in my life. The rest will navigate together. She smiled relief. Evident day by day works for me. There's something else. I said, remembering the other news from my eventful day. National Geographic called. They want to discuss a joint expedition. My archaeological expertise, your photography, 6 months in Peru. Na's eyes widened. That's incredible. When would it start? Next semester? I'd need a sabbatical. And you're considering it? The hope in her voice was palpable. I've already applied for the leave. I took a deep breath. I thought, maybe we could see the world together for a while? Test this thing between us somewhere without all these complications. Na pulled me close, her kiss conveying everything words couldn't. When we separated, her eyes shimmered with emotion. Caroline, right, you continue to surprise me. The remainder of the evening dissolved into more intimate conversations. Na showing me what it meant to be truly seen and desired. In her loft high above Detroit streets, I discovered parts of myself long dormant, or never before explored. Later, watching her sleep, I marveled at life's unexpected turns. 6 months ago, I defined myself primarily as Jonathan Phillips's wife and a respected archaeologist. Now those identities were transforming, the first shed completely, the second expanding in thrilling new directions, and something entirely new was emerging. A version of myself, reflected in Na's eyes that seemed both foreign and fundamentally true. The exhibition opening transformed the university's main gallery into a space of ancient wonder and modern artistry. Artifacts I'd studied for years now gleamed under perfect lighting, while Na's photographs provided context and emotion that academic descriptions alone never could. Together, we'd created something neither of us could have accomplished individually. I adjusted my midnight blue dress, something I'd never have chosen before. Naina and watched as Detroit's academic elite mingled with photography enthusiasts, donors, and curious members of the public who'd read about our controversial collaboration. Nervous Naina appeared beside me, resplendent in a tailored black suit that managed to look both professional and alluring. Surprisingly, no, I realized it was true. After the week's battles, standing proudly beside my work and my partner felt like victory already. President Stevens approached, champagne flute in hand. Dr. Wright, Miss Anderson. The turnout is remarkable. Yes, I agreed pleasantly. Quite a few media outlets too. All that publicity seems to have worked in our favor. His forced smile acknowledged my point. The controversy had indeed driven attendance beyond expectations. Already, the university's social media accounts were celebrating record opening night numbers. Homer appeared beaming. Caroline. The Barton Foundation representatives want to discuss a potential endowment for the department, and National Geographic is looking for you both. As the evening progressed, I found myself moving comfortably between academic discussions and more personal conversations. Several colleagues made a point of introducing themselves to Naina. their initial awkwardness giving way to genuine professional interest. "Your ex-husband just arrived," Na murmured during a brief moment alone with a very pregnant woman. Jonathan and Rebecca stood near the entrance, her hand protectively over her rounded belly. When our eyes met across the room, he nodded respectfully. I returned the gesture, surprised at my own equanimity. "Are you okay?" Na asked, perfectly. I realized I meant it. "Actually, wait here a moment." I crossed the room, aware of curious eyes tracking my movement. Jonathan straightened as I approached. "Thank you for coming," I said, extending my hand to Rebecca. "I'm Caroline Rebecca." She shook my hand, eyes cautious but not unkind. "Your exhibition is impressive. I had an exceptional partner." I glanced across the room to where Na stood, watching our interaction with barely concealed concern. "Would you both like?" To meet her, the surprise on Jonathan's face was almost comical. "We'd be honored," he said finally. I led them to Nana, making introductions with surprising ease. What might have been an awkward moment instead became a civilized conversation about archaeology, photography, and the challenges of academic funding. As they moved on to view the exhibits, Nana squeezed my hand. That was remarkably mature of everyone involved. "Growth," I shrugged. "Apparently it happens." Later, as guests began departing, Homer presented us with the visitor book filled with glowing comments. The board chairman specifically asked me to convey his congratulations on an exceptional presentation that upholds the university's highest standards. Na and I exchanged knowing glances at his pointed emphasis. "Perhaps we should celebrate properly," she suggested once we were alone in the gallery. "Your place or mine?" Actually, I smiled, pulling an envelope from my evening bag. "I have another idea." The envelope contained confirmation of a reservation at Detroit's most elegant hotel, a suite overlooking the river. Professor Wright, Na's eyebrow arched appreciatively. How scandalous Dawn found us on the balcony, wrapped in plush robes watching the city awaken. My head rested against Nana's shoulder, her arms secure, around my waist. 6 months in Peru. She murmured into my hair. "Are you really ready for that adventure?" "I'm discovering. I'm ready for many things I never expected," I replied, thinking of how much had changed since that rainy night when my car broke down. "Though, I should warn you, I'm terrible at tent assembly." "Noted. I'll handle camping logistics if you handle translating ancient texts." "Deal." I turned in her arms to face her. "You know, for someone who photographs the past, you've given me an unexpected future. Is that your scholarly assessment, Professor?" "No," I smiled. "Just my heart talking." Exactly. 1 year later, we celebrated 2 anniversaries. 1 year since my divorce. 1 year since finding something infinitely more authentic. We stood on Machu Picchu as dawn broke over the ancient stones, Na's camera capturing the moment while my notes recorded archaeological observations. "Any regrets?" she asked, lowering her camera. I considered the winding path that had brought us here. From broken marriage to broken, downcar from professional collaboration to profound partnership. "Just one," I replied, watching uncertainty flicker across her face before I continued. "I wish my car had broken down in your neighborhood years earlier." The Michigan autumn had long since given way to Peruvian spring, but as Na's laughter echoed against the ancient walls, I realized some beginnings are worth waiting for, no matter how they start.